Hello everyone, welcome back. So this is the outline of what we have discussed in part 1. So we discussed about what we are going to cover as part of this course structure, what you will able to achieve, the objectives, and then we discussed why do we need to study design. We discussed several examples from your real world where we need to study design. For example, another example we can take from our real life is booking a cab. If you want to go from some source to destination, one place to another, how you used to book a cab earlier and what is the experience we have it now. Earlier probably you need to reach out to some travel agent. They charge you exaggerated amount of money to go from one place to another. So now we have the solution at our hand. We have solutions like Uber, Ola, Rapido, and many others. So that's how basically we build a solution which doesn't solve the problem, it also solve in better way. So going forward, we are going to study what is SCI, how to build a sample SCI project as part of this course if you have to, and towards the end you will also have demonstration of two successful projects, and that will end by tutorials and some assignments. So in real world we encountering the digital transformation for every problem that we face. So let's talk about the example of cab booking itself. If you have to go from one place to another, what you used to do? Often you go to taxi stand, bus stand, or probably auto stand to probably ask the person whether you want to go to this place. And often they charge you a lot of money. They don't go by meters and so on. So that's where basically the corresponding digital transformation is that now you have taxi stand in your mobile itself. You can simply book a cab immediately, and in real time all the taxi provider, or you can say that all the taxi driver which is in your vicinity can provide you uh, the solution. They can come to your place to pick you and probably drop you at your destination. So digital transformation is reshaping how we live, work, and interact. Same example we can think about like payment, digital payment. So as I said in the previous lecture, we have some services like Paytm, PhonePe, Cred, and many other. If you have to transfer money to someone earlier, you need to go to bank, fill a very detailed form, and also basically do a lot of stuff to get it done. So it takes a lot of time. There may be mistake in basically filling the form. You may need assistance in doing that and so on. So now the corresponding digital transformation, as you can see that now you have the digital payment app which make your life easier, and now you are able to complete the task in few seconds itself. And that's where business must adopt to stay in competition to increasingly digital world. So so that is the reason now all the banks not just provide the transaction amount transfer from their bank, but you can simply use their net banking or other mobile apps to perform the task. Individual organization must embrace innovation to thrive the future, because if you don't adopt the new technology you may lag behind. We have so many examples, in real world. If you don't adapt to the new technology you may be outdated and the people will leave you. One very big example is Kodak. Earlier, if you see any camera, most of them are coming from Kodak. They have not, and they are leader in basically the uh, capturing photos. But what happened? They did not probably adapt themselves to the new technology, and now Kodak is in history. Similarly, we can take examples of uh, mobile phones. Earlier, Nokia was one of the biggest mobile manufacturer and so on. But after the advent of smartphones, they lag behind, and again we know what happened. So yeah, so digital transformation has impact on industry related to healthcare. As you can see that now it is happening telemedicine, AI for diagnostics, digital health records and so on, so that even if you go from one doctor to another, they know their record, they know their history, they know what all kind of medicines has been given, what kind of test has been done and so on. Retail, so now you have e-commerce websites, personalized shopping experience, and smart supply chain. So that's where basically now we have the quick commerce now, which are changing and disrupting whole the process of buying anything and so on. Similarly, we have the finance, and we have the fintech, digital payments, blockchain. All those are advancement. If industry has to be relevant, then they have to adapt to these new technologies, and these new technology often for good as well, because they are providing solutions which are not possible before. Using the advancement of AI, so now LLMs, as you can see that numerous solutions are getting built which are helping users and industry in many ways. Similarly, in education, so e-learning, digital classroom, virtual campuses, especially as we discussed in the previous lecture after COVID. Yeah, so you have to move to online education, online assessment and so on. Manufacturing, so that is one of the biggest revolution that we are seeing. Industry 4.0, automation, predictive maintenance and so on. So when we're talking about all this digital transformation, if you're talking about car industry, the Tesla comes first in our mind, and that's how they are ruling, I would say, the car industry, and change the way car industry was there before. Similarly, transforming everyday's life. So we all now have the smartphones, smart homes. So basically, you have the IoT-driven automation control system. So now you have um, a smart light just by clapping or by time, or based on the activity. If there is no one, it can turn off automatically or turn on based on the you are coming in. Again, similarly for transportation, so you have autonomous vehicles, Tesla, as I mentioned earlier. So now we have the electric mobility, again friendly to the environment, digital ticketing and so on. Entertainment, as you can see that there are streaming services, virtual reality, gaming, and all those are getting quite popular. Communications, as we know that, I mean, especially in the millennials and probably the young people, very common question to ask: are you on social media? Majority they said yes, I am. And if you are not on social media, you feel like you are an outlier. So social media, instant messaging, video conferencing, again, all those are the digital transformation of what used to happen in real life. So because it's not like, I mean, transportation was not there before, and it was not like um, you are not sending message to someone before, or you are not speaking with someone before. So you have basically probably changed from SMS to more, you can say, the multimedia based messages. So now you are able to send the images, you are able to send the videos, audio and so on. But at the same time, it also comes with different challenges, especially when you are start interacting with digital services, start putting your details and probably leaving your digital traces. The issue comes with data security. So protecting personal and organizational data is again a challenge. Digital divide, ensuring that equitable access to the technology, because not everyone have access to uh, the technology. So for example, when we moved to online education during COVID, people say, okay, join online education, do online lectures. But do everyone have the access to the laptops? Do everyone have access to the smartphones? Not really. There are, especially in the students studying in the government school, they do not have such access, and that's where they lag behind. Skill gap. So upskilling the workforce to keep pace with the technology, that is also one of the prominent issues which concerns. And last but not the least is the privacy concern, addressing ethical issues related to the surveillance and the data. Often we listen that this company or that company sell data to the other company and so on, because as we discussed, often different users have different characteristics, personalities, and so on. And often um, you may basically have some information which you don't want to share with everyone, right? So but in digital world, I mean, often it get propagated, it may be sell and so on. So for example, one example we can think of, um, you a company which is managing your health record, it can sell it to some insurance company. So we can think of, like, I mean, it will happen, no insurance company will further give you probably the insurance, or probably give you at very high cost and so on. So again, those are issues with this and so on. So let's go back to the some activity based on the digital transformation. As we can see that, so for example, let's take a use case of renewal of driving license. So earlier what used to happen, you need to go to the transport office, you need to take the physical form, you need to paste your photo, write all those details and submit it. And probably you may also need to bribe them to get it at some places. And with the benefit of digital transformation, now you can apply all those at your home itself, from your mobile or probably the laptop itself. And the benefit is like, it's convenience, you don't have to waste time in going there, you can save cost, global reach, and also basically it can curb corruption at some level. And also there is now responsibility and accountability of the people if they are not able to uh, complete the task which you have requested. For example, if you have to apply for a learner license, apply for a driving license, apply for DL renewal and so on, apply for duplicate DL, and all those things is quite clear. You can just select that, and you need to fill the corresponding form, and it's done. And also it's quite possible to edit all those details because it's digital. For example, if you're filling this form, you have written something, but suddenly you realize, okay, so you misspell, or probably you have written something wrong, so you have to again fill out all a new form altogether. But here in digital life, I think it's possible. And the issues that we discussed, like privacy, accessibility, social impact, all those, definitely one of the challenges in digital transformation. Another example we can think of, like ordering food and groceries. So now we have the quick commerce, we have the basically the Uber Eats, Zomato, which is basically getting you food from the restaurant, and similarly groceries using Blinkit and Instamart, and many others are there. Big baskets are there, and so on. So as we can see that, so definitely it comes with many pros, but it also have different um, limitations as well. That is something you have to think about when you are building the solution for it. So another activity you can think of, digital transformation in education. There are companies like Physicswala, OpenAI, Khansar, Baiju, Run Academy, and are there which are doing solutions related to education. Similarly, Chiron is there, which is basically doing proctor based online services so that you can conduct a fair examination. Arduino is there, which is basically based on LLMs to basically help you understand a given multimedia content. So for example, what has been discussed in this video, at what time, what is the summary, all those things you can do. Unacademy, we all are aware of, it's quite a uh, popular platform for learning. Baidu, though it's now history, it's bankrupt, but at least it was quite popular, and so on. Chegg is one of the very popular company in US, and it used to basically help in completing the homework for students in a way, or helping in completing the homework. And so it used to be such a big company. You can see that it has valuation, market valuation in several billions. But after the disruption created by OpenAI, their market value dropped from several billions to, you can say, the few millions USD. And the stock price, if we talk about, in just 1 or 1.5 year, it has reduced 85 to 90%. You can think that that is one of the, you can call it one of the victim of chat gpt, because so now students used to go to chat gpt to complete the assignments answers rather than going to check and pay for it. So again, so this is also the example of digital transformation we are doing, and pros and cons for that, so you can think about it. So the reason being, we are talking about these situations. What if you will be in situation to build solution for this? How your solution will be, how you are going to solve the problem. And the best way to solve the problem is see how things happen in real life. So for example, if it is in education, how you need to first look at how a teacher teaches in the class, how different students participate in the class, what the teacher basically, what are the methodologies, what are the ways teacher basically teaching in the class, and so on, how the examinations are happening in the class. So that when we are building a kind of digital transformation, when we are building some kind of interactive system or human computer interaction based system, you need to mimic what is happening in real life, and you have to solve in the same way. The reason I'm emphasizing you have to solve in the same way, because if it is different, the user may not adopt it, because users are habitual of how they are doing in real life. And if you stick to that, if you are going to basically follow the similar thing, I think it's easier for the it easier for the user to adopt it. It's easier for the user to use it, learn it, and complete the task with. That is all the key point as we discussed about usability. It's not just about completing the task, but it is also about how efficiently, how effectively, how you are able to complete with fun, enjoyment, and so on. And another example you can think about, those who are enthusiastic about finance. So earlier, how you used to buy any stock earlier. So there you need to go to stock exchange, buy basically the stocks, and again it took several days to basically getting the receipt or probably the bond for that stock, and so on. Again, very time taking process. Again, there may be cases of fraud when basically someone taking the money from you, but have not bought for you and ran away, and so on. So a lot of issues were there. So now, you can see the digital transformation for this. So now we have the companies like Jirodha, Grow, and many others. Similarly, Paytm, SDFC, all those banks are also having their own equity based app and solutions, where you can simply buy any simply buy any stock in just a fraction of seconds. You just simply click, pay, and that's it, and that will come to your account immediately. That is something you can see here. And you can also visualize how you are doing basically in your portfolio. So earlier it's very hard. You have the hard copies. It's not easy to visualize how good or bad different stocks are doing, so that you can take decision to do so. And towards that, which stock is good, which stock is not so good, which stock do you think is going to do better. So that's where the solutions are, number of solutions are there, which is try to solve this. So like we have the screener, we have Tijori, we have many others, which try to basically educate about the, you can say, health of different equities that you are going to deal with. And that will also help you in finding the multi-bagger stock, right? So that is, if you don't follow that, if you don't have the knowledge about it, then there is a very little difference between the multi-bagger and multi-bagger, right? So ideally you need to, and these companies are now become a very big company. These companies are now helping um, users significantly, because using these applications, there are so many users who are able to make more money. So yeah, this is the outline of this part. So we are going to discuss what is SCI and the primarily building about the project and the resources. So SCI basically explores the interaction of technology and the human behavior. And when we talk about technology, primarily we are talking about the different machines or devices that we're talking about, and human behavior, the way human used to complete the work using those. So SCI is crucial field in today's technology driven world, and with the rapid evolution of digital technology, SCI plays a vital role in creating user friendly efficient system impacting industry. Again, it ranges from education, healthcare, entertainment, e-commerce, and so on. And that's where basically we have to come up with a solution which not just able to complete the task, but it should be user friendly, it should be basically efficient, and so on. So that's where basically Steve Jobs said, design it not just what it looks like and feels like, design is how it works. That's where basically we have to keep design and human centered design principle in center in order to solve any problems. To formally define, the study and design how people interact with computers and other technologies, focusing on making these interaction effective, efficient, and enjoyable. And basically, I mean, the research in SCI emerges in 1980s. Basically, it's influenced by disciplines like computer science, psychology, and cognitive science. And initially, it focused on improving the workplace computing, but now, as you can say, that it covers all digital interaction, ranging from any machines that you interact in daily life. So, ranging from cars, ranging from mobile phones, laptops, websites, mobile apps, and so on. There are so many contributors in this, but just to name a few, these are um, top contributors. As you can say that they don't need any introduction, like Donald Norman, Alan Dix, and so on. And Professor Fefeli is also one of the eminent researchers, especially in the area of AI and SCI. So the importance of SCI is primarily it enhances usability, it reduces errors, and it creates satisfying user experience across industry. So that is why the studying human computer interaction is of one of the most important thing if you want to build some kind of system for the users. So let's take a case study of credit card payment again, as we discussed in the previous uh, lecture. There are so many solutions which is providing credit card payment. As we discussed some of the use cases, like you don't want to pay a full amount, you want to pay just probably partial payment, you want probably see the progress, you want to see the due dates, and many others. There are so many companies which are there which can help you. But in terms of completing the task, probably all remain the same. Using Paytm, again, you can also pay the credit card payment. Using phone pay, using cred, using SDFC, or probably in net banking, you can all do the payment. But is it fun? Can you make it better? That is something you need to ask. So that's where basically I'm just showing a kind of comparison, not comparison. I'm just showing a basically a use case where you can pay the credit card bill using Paytm, and that's it. And you'll get a kind of again all those feedback and notification, and like the amount has been paid. But what different trade is doing, so when you pay something, so basically they give you the rewards. They say that, for example, if you get 777, it's kind of you have the rolling things. If you get three sevens, probably you'll get a iPhone 16 Pro or whatever. So in this case, for example, so after the payment has been done, you'll get a kind of a game where you can just spin it, and you'll get different numbers. So you have basically three kind of columns, and you'll get different things. If you get 3 7, for example, you can get iPhone 16 or anything. In a way, I mean, you're just having fun, right? So after this, probably you keep rolling this. So for example, they, after a payment, they ask you, okay, so you can spin for 5 times, and these are the progress it is showing. You have used 2 spins so far, and in this pin, for example, you got 27, so probably you just missed it, right? So but despite, I mean, okay, so since you have received 27, so we'll give you cashback of 1. And that is interesting UI, you can see that, I mean, visualization, you can see that. So earlier it was 0 rupees, so now I won a cashback of, for example, 1 rupees. So now it's going back to my digital wallet, and probably after that you'll see you have received 1 rupee in your wallet, and that you can use for further payment, transaction and all. So I mean, in a way, I mean, confirmation you are getting, reward you are getting, and that is, in a way, you are not just doing the payment, but it is more effective, efficient, enjoyable, and so on. So you can also, I mean, consider different such activity in your real life, and that you can do. So one thing you might have realized, that there are basically three key components in SCI primarily, and the prime most is definitely the user. So now you have a user, right? And there are basically the technology, so that is more, you can say, the different machines you have, and so on, right? And basically there is some interaction in order to complete the work, and that's where probably you may have some interface, that is something there. So the key components in SCI, as I mentioned, is central to SCI, involving understanding user behavior, expectations, and the limitations. You need to set the expectation clear, and you also need to probably keep your user informed what can be achieved and what can't be, right? Technology, so that includes hardware, software, and the technical infrastructure that facilitate that interaction. So that's where the interface I was talking about. Interaction, so how communication occurs between the user and the technology. So for example, from clicking a button to voice commands. So for example, if you are basically interacting with an Alexa, right? In that case, you are using voice command to ask Alexa to perform something. So for example, Alexa, what is date today? Alexa, how is the weather today? And so on. In order to make it more personalized, you can probably add your own name to the system, and so on. So Jacob Nielsen rightly said, know your users and you are the halfway to success. So it is very, very important to know your users, because end of the day you are building any solution that you have for the user, because these users are going to use it. And if you don't consider what these users want, if you don't consider how they want, and what are they based on their limitation, so it's not going to work, right? So that is something you have to keep in mind. So know your user, that is the key. And after that, you can build some technology and interaction to complete the task. So in SCI, usability and user experience is primarily focuses on effectively how user can achieve their goals using a product. So when you're using a product, how usable they are, so you have to keep the following things in mind. It should be efficient, how quickly task can be performed. So let's take an example of credit card payment itself. So there are app 1 which probably take 5 seconds to complete the payment and probably receive the confirmation in 1 minute. At the same time, there is another app which just done in fraction of seconds, for example just 10 seconds, and you even receive the notifications and your credit limit has been updated just within say 10 seconds. So of course you prefer the first one or second one. So probably you choose which is more efficient. Effectiveness, so accuracy of the task completion, so it should accurately complete the task itself, right? So for example, if you're making a payment of 15,000 rupees, then ideally 15,000 rupees should be credited to your credit card, right? Not the 5,000, and so on. Learnability, how easy it is for new user to begin the system. So often you want to onboard so many users and so on, right? That's how you grow. So for that, if the system is easy to learn for any new user, I think it's great. And often this learnability are inspired by you need to basically do the things the way human do in their life. If you somehow follow the legacy system, if you somehow follow the way a user behave in their real life, and if you follow those thing in your solution, I think they are going to like it. They are going to learn it quite early. Memorability, how easy, how usually users can return to a system after a break. So for example, you are using uh, for example, a payment app for some time, and after that probably you went on summer holiday and you did not use it. Then how easy for you if you just start com- uh, doing payment again after a break of 5 months, 6 months? How easy for you to memorable and do? Lastly, satisfaction, users comfort and positivity towards the system. So user should be satisfied. He should feel sense of probably accomplishing the task, and not just accomplishing the task but also accomplishing in best way, enjoyable way, fun way, and so on. So user experience, the overall experience, emotion, and perceptions a user have when interacting with the product. And it is rightly said, people ignore design that ignore people. So you have to keep human in the loop, you need to keep people in the center, and try to match the following whether all these things are meeting or not in your product, in your solution. So if we talk about a broader version, so basically you see, we can see the difference between the journey from usability to user experience to customer experience. So you can see this difference. So where usability primarily talk about easy of use, efficiency, and error prevention, and primarily the scope limited to the task specific and related issues. An objective is to make the product simple and functional, and the key element that we discussed in previous slide, learnability, efficiency, satisfaction, and all those. So example could be a user friendly interface with very clear button. That is something you have to do. So user experience is like overall experience that you have when you use the product. So it's broader than usability and include even the aesthetics and the content. How it's not about just how you are doing, but also how does the interface look like, how does the UI look like, and so on. Make the product delightful, engaging, and valuable. And the key elements is usability, design, and emotional experience. Are you able to relate yourself uh, emotion with the probably for example, after credit card payment, are you happy, how you feel about it? So example is a mobile app that intuitive and visually pleasing. And lastly, the customer experience is basically it's a holistic relation with the brand. So it's now beyond the product that you are using. So for example, you may be using iPhone 16 Pro, but customer experience is beyond the product that you're using. So for example, how do you feel about Apple company itself? How do you feel about its launch? Are you crazy enough to probably standing in the long queue for on the first day to probably grab iPhone 16s or even the future version, and so on? So it compasses UX plus interaction design outside the product. That's what I mean by the launch. And so it also basically works toward the building brand loyalty, satisfaction, and advocacy. I've seen the people basically once they start using Apple phone, they continue using the Apple phone, all the different new versions which are coming, and so on. So often people have some brand perception as well. Customer service and communication, and so on. So for example, you are using a person, you are using a basically one perception is like, okay, so if you are using any product by Elon Musk, then it has to be good as compared to uh, any other traditional or local vendor, then probably it may not be that good. So a seamless product process from start to end, so that is something we have to do. So ultimately for companies, they eventually want to build a better customer experience, right? Then only they are able to have better user experience for even for the new product or usability, and so on, for anything which is coming. So another very important aspect in SCI is the interaction design. So interaction design is the practice of designing interactive digital products, environments, system and services. It focuses on creating meaningful relation between the users and the technology through engaging interfaces and seamless experience. Here the key goal is how to make interaction intuitive, efficient and enjoyable. So some example you can see that Apple's iPhone swipe to unlock a simple interaction that become iconic for its intuitive user. So one of the another reason Apple is able to build a kind of such a great customer experience and such a user base and become such big company because of their innovation. Often they come up with many features which world has not seen before, and that is something now we also able to see in the solution which Elon Musk is providing through different things he's offering through its Tesla car, or using chopsticks to probably uh, land the rocket and so on. Similarly, Netflix autoplay feature, so an interaction that anticipate user needs by autoplaying the next. So earlier, one of the problem you might be facing, right? So once one episode finish, you need to basically go to the probably the list of episodes, or and then select the next one and play and so on. So now it is now autoplay for you, right? Once one ends in a few seconds, they also show you the progress. If you see the next button, you can also stop there, but by default it is going to play the next one. So Google search suggestions, so predictive suggestions that speed up the search process, because and that is also one of the another reason the Google becomes such big company, because they made the search simpler, and and that basically improve the overall user experience. So using their predictive suggestions, so for example, often you write something, one possibility you write everything, another possibility would be based on, again, based on the search history, based on the probably the way you are using, Google can suggest you, okay, so after even not just completing the word, I mean just writing a few letters itself, you get a lot of suggestion by Google. Do you mean that? You simply click tab and probably you'll get all those suggestions. So there are some key principles of interaction designs. One of the most important one is affordance. The user should be understand. One of the key most principle is affordance. User should understand what actions are possible just by looking at an interface. So for example, when you are interacting with a kind of website, right? So there, if the content on the page is like a lot, so there is a kind of elevator button, you might have seen that. Using that you can go up and down. Similarly, there are different buttons. So for example, renew for recall the example of renewing driving license. So there is a button, right? Simply for renew, click here. For applying a new license, click here, and so on. So these are visibility that we have when you look at the buttons in a kind of affordance. So it's a kind of self-intuitive in nature. You just simply look and do accordingly. Feedback. So clear feedback should be provided after user's action. For example, when you um, hover your mouse over the different buttons, so some particular, when your mouse is cursor is at some particular button, you might have seen that it changes the color. It means now you are going to click it, maybe, and after the clicking you may hear the sound click. So those click sound basically again a kind of feedback to the user, so this action has been performed. And after that you may show the progress bar that comes later on. Next is the consistency. So design elements should be predictive and uniform throughout the interface, because if you're using different color scheme at different pages, different layout at different pages, it's very very disturbing. I mean, you may not able to like, you're not going to like this. So consistency is also one of the key interaction design principle. Visibility. So in important function should be visible and not hidden in complex menus. So that is something you should be uh, provide to the user to perform anything. Error prevention. So good design minimizes user errors and offers easy recovery if mistakes are made, because it's like you're using something, you may by mistake you may click renew button instead of applying a new driving license. Similarly, probably because often when you are interacting with different mobile phones, usually you have quite limited space. So it is possible that you may probably click some other button, or even for example typing. So on typing on mobile phone, you might have seen that the keyboard is very very small. I mean, you have very small keys and a small space for different keys that you have, and you end up probably writing or typing some wrong letters. So how quickly you are able to basically do the error prevention, that is something we have to do. So with respect to the interaction design, the details are not the details. Ideally you do not need to, and you should not need to provide the details. Let it be self intuitive itself. Yeah, they make the design. So that's what Charles Arms said. So human centeredness in SCI, as I said, I mean, the in case of SCI, human is one of the key component, and you need to keep human in the loop because you are going to build solution for the human, right? So human centeredness in SCI is one of the key aspect, and it is the strength and tradition of SCI has been its human centeredness and the usability concerns. So SCI has evolved methods, guidelines, principles and standards to ensure that systems are easy to use and easy to learn. And it is also very important to have the understanding of the users, because if you don't understand user, then you are probably going to build something which user don't want, or probably you are going to build something in a way which probably user don't like it. So consider it, what people are good at, what are bad at, what are their conditions, what do they like. Similarly, consider what might help people with the way they currently doing things. So nobody wants to use a system where you are deteriorating the things. Ideally, they want improvement in the existing way of doing it, be in terms of time, be in terms of efficiency, be in terms of experience, and so on. So thinking through what might provide quality experience. So that is something we have to keep in mind, and listening to what people want and getting them involved in the design. So because often if you don't involve the people in design, probably end up building something which they don't want. So that's why it is very very important to have regular feedback from the user. Going to be, I mean, in the upcoming lectures we will be discussing these topics in greater details, where uh, we study how to involve the people, how to involve, what are the ways basically involve the people, how to get the feedback, and how to do the, you can say, the evaluation, how to get the feedback. All those things can be done. So in case of user centered design, so there are um, these key aspect you have to keep in mind. So user research, because in order to keep human in the loop, in order to keep your user informed or understand their limitations and strength, you need to basically interact with them. So user research basically primarily talk about this, and that you can get to know using by conducting some surveys. You can interview them, and also the observe to understand the user needs. So there are experts who are basically know a lot of about it, but um, often expert also may miss out something. So it's why you also need to discuss the real users. Ideation, so brainstorming and sketching ideas are based on the user study. So what all uh, users, what all you have received in user research, you can brainstorm, you can sketch the ideas, how you're going to forward, how you're going to solve the problems, and so on. So it's more about conceptualizing the solution. So once you have conceptualized the solution, so now the next thing would be how to basically translate your idea into something tangible, and that is what prototyping focuses on. So it develop mock-ups, wireframes to visualize the solution. And next, how good your solution is. So you need to test it, and conducting usability testing with real user to gather the real feedback, and accordingly you need to update the system, prototype, and even the solutions, and come up again. So iteration is basically the key, and it redefine uh, design based on the user feedback and the observation that you have. So, as Donald Norman rightly said, design is really an act of communication, because through your design, without word, you can just communicate with uh, probably your user, which means having a deep understanding of the person with whom the designer is communicating. So until you don't understand the user who is going to use it, it's not going to work. And that's where basically design plays an important role to bridge this gap. So there are several ways you can interact with the system. So there are different interaction styles. So you can use CLI, command line interface, and efficient for technical user. Often you might have seen that there are the Linux user. There are basically the system programming where basically it relied on the command line interface. So similarly, we have the graphical user interface, so where you have some visual elements involved. So for example, you can see what is happening. So I'm going to do this, and there is corresponding elements or icons, and you see what is the progress accordingly. Similarly, voice user interface, which is now getting quite popular, so uses speech recognition for interaction. So for example, Siri, Alexa, Google Assistants are the examples. Gesture based interaction, so it employs the physical movements for control. So for example, the way you swipe on a smartphone, again, is kind of gesture, right? Uh, Similarly, in order to interact with someone, you can also build similar system. AR VR, again, it's kind of you can say the advanced in immersive interfaces that blend real and virtual environment for unique user experience. And there is something called MR, in between mixed reality, that is in between of the. So virtual reality is more like you putting the user in completely virtual environment. Augmented reality, that is more, I mean, it's basically you also interacting with some phones. There are some device, and accordingly you are interacting in the virtual world. So you're kind of doing. So if you think good design is expensive, you should look at the cost of bad design. So that is being said by the Ralph Farmer, CEO of Jaguar Land Rover, and it is rightly said, right? Because if you make a good design, then probably you can even capture the whole market, and that's where basically you can basically come up with a greater, you can say, the benefits. And if you come up with a kind of bad design, then it's nobody is going to like, you're not able to earn, and even you may not going to have the user who is going to use it. So uh, recently I came across an article where Tesla was on the verge of bankrupting, but what made them different is like their design, their user experience, and in just span of probably 6 7 years, or probably just 6 years, you can see that Tesla is now one of the leading automotive company which is building kind of state of the art cars, electric cars, and um, autonomous vehicles and so on, and now much bigger than many traditional companies which are working in that area for several years, even 100 years and so. So there are many emerging techniques and trends in technologies, AI and machine learning. So now the interfaces that learn from the user behavior and accordingly adapt to the user need and have the personalization. Augmented reality and virtual reality, that is creating immersive experience, as we discussed. Wearable technology, so that is also one of the integral part of our life these days. So integrating technology into everyday accessories like watches, as I shown, and similarly the glasses. So you may use a recently Meta has released a kind of uh, glass where basically it has camera, and basically what it does, for example, if you are reading some book which is in English, it will automatically translate, and you can see in your glasses the translated version and so on. Similarly, so again, Google Glass is also one such example, and so on. So natural user interface. So interfaces relying on the intuitive actions like gesture, voice, and all. That is something you can do, and that is something, I mean, emerging techniques, and we have to be updated with this in order to building our solution. So one key thing that we should keep in mind when we are building our solution, we need to keep all kind of stakeholders in mind. So for example, there may be users who are basically disabled, right? So in that case, basically you need to your build your solution which is accessible in nature. So for example, uh, example of visual accessibility would be high contrast, scalable text, alternative text for images, and so on. So in order to build our solutions, we need to consider the following. So for visual accessibility, we need to consider high contrast, scalable text, alternative text for images. For motor accessibility, it should have simplified navigation, keyboard shortcut, voice commands. And for cognitive accessibility, use simple language, consistent navigation, and clear instruction. For auditory accessibility, captions for videos, transcript for audio, sound alternative. And you need to follow the guideline which is well established by the different organization. So for example, WCAG, Web Content and Accessibility Guideline, and area is like one of the most popular guideline for accessibility, which different company has to comply with. So accessibility is not a feature, it's a social trend, and it is one of the most important thing you need to have when you are building solutions. So the next step, after building this, you have to basically see how good your system is, and for that you will have to evaluate. Though I mean the dedicated lecture for this later on, but in brief, user testing, observe real user interacting with the product. And there are different techniques like heuristic evaluation, where expert assesses the interface against the usability principles and provide their feedback. There are surveys and questionnaire as part of user research, where collect the quantitative data on the user satisfaction. There are cognitive walkthrough, simulate a user's experience to identify the usability issues. There are A/B testing. You might have probably already heard about it. So you given kind of two versions, which one you like. So comparing two versions of product to determine which performs better. And evolution is very important aspect of building anything, not just related to SCI, but anything that you build, right? Because that help you to understand, is it completing the expected task or not, with again what all the condition that you have. So what get measured gets managed. Otherwise you also have surprises in life, right? You'll have surprises. For example, if you don't measure it, if you don't evaluate it, how your solution is going to work in different environment, I mean, it may or may not able to work. So that's why it's very important to measure it and so on, evaluate it. There are some useful case studies that you should definitely consider, and we should not just learn from the successful case studies, but we should also consider the failed case studies, because there is always some learning from failed case study, why it failed, why it did not work. So in case of successful case studies, a well-known product that excelled in usability is Apple iPhone, Google search, and so on, which also basically again following the different accessibility guideline as discussed in the previous slide. In case of failed case study, an example of poor design leading to failure. Example, early versions of Windows Vista or Google Glass, which was people did not adopt, people did not like it, and so on. So analysis is like what was learned. Again, analysis what was learned from both successful and the failed cases, how it impacted the user positively or negatively, and changes made for improvement, so that whenever you're coming with the next solution, better version, you need to basically apply those learning. So so as I said, I mean, I do expect, like as part of this course, you may able to come up with some kind of a CI project towards the end of this course. So for your reference, I'm going to start with one of the project that we are doing with my students, Aditya and Manya. So where basically I'm going to show the progress we are going to have in different lectures, and towards the end we'll see a kind of our final solution that we have for the problem we are working on. So let's quickly talk about the problem. So this project is called Wave. As you can see that it is being done by our students Aditya and Manya. They are amazing, wonderful students, and they are thinking out of the box to solve the different problems related to the learning for visually impaired students. So basically, we are working on a visually impaired student often struggle to learn Braille due to the lack of interactive tools and the guidance. Traditional methods are outdated and fail to engage, and that's what I said, right? You need to adapt the technology, you need to follow the latest technology to to come up with a better solution. So can we do something here? I mean, there are so many better, so because the braille which still students are using are outdated in a sense. I mean, the it could be improved with the better, you can say, the technology which are around. So limited and inefficient teaching assets lead to the decreased instructor motivation, and while existing tools make tracking progress difficult and have again steep learning curve. So despite government funding like PWD sector and regional language support, their implementation struggle due to the lack of user centric tools and adapt support systems. And what you have to do in order to come up with a solution for visually impaired student to learn, to help them in learning the braille. So what you can do, basically, you can come up with a kind of solution by keeping all the stakeholders, together, right? Or at least learn from them. Again, you can perform the user research and all those. So with this, I mean, um, we can come up with a solution which can help the visually impaired student learn how to write A, how to write B, how to write the numbers, and so on. So quickly about the Braille alphabet, it is developed by the Louis Braille in 19th century, and these are the Braille characters that you can see. And each Braille character consists of 6 dot arranged. So like in this case, you can see here. So these are the first 3 dots, and these three are the second 3 dots for D, right? So you can think it like 2 cos 3 grid, 2 columns and the 3 rows. And dot representation are like dots are number 1 to 6, like 1 2 3 4 5 6, and starting from the top left, and that's what I told. So now, given that this braille alphabet you have, given that how the numbers and the alphabets are represented, how you can help a visually impaired student learning braille? Can we do so? So the solution is Wave, wearable assistive for your vision. So in this case, basically, they have developed a wearable glove that helps visually impaired learn braille through simple gesture. So this has basically uses haptic sensors, and that is the key in our solution, to gently nudge the user on their movement, and uh, actuators to confirm input and output. Audio feedback driven instructor website with two modes of assistive students, and enable instructor to track the progress, how the students are progressing over the time, how much error the person is making now when the person has started in order to learning or typing the braille. So it aligns with the government initiative to provide the regional language support, uh, Bharti Braille and so on, to create a more diverse and inclusive learning. So this is visualization you can think of, where we are having kind of haptic sensor feedback, and based on the gesture that you are going to make with the fingers, you are able to learn and type the things. So in summary, you can see that, as I said, in the braille, you have what you have these 6 dots, so you can call it 1 2 3 4 5 6, right? So for example, in this case, in order to write, for example, E, so you need to press 1 and 5, right? So can we use these 3 fingers as basically these representing these dots? So for example, these 3 dots from the left hand and these 3 dots from the right hand, basically a kind of representation of how the braille works. So in this work, I mean, although we discuss in more details in the coming lectures, but for briefly we can say that, I mean, the in order to write E, person has to simply uh, uh, use finger 1 and from left hand, and probably finger this finger from the right hand to type E, right? So simply have to, basically the person has to write, okay? So like in this case, the person has to move these 2 finger together to type E. So in order to provide a summary, Good design is intuitive, it should be simple, user friendly, and it should indeed solve the problem effectively, while bad design is confusing, inefficient, and fails to meet the user needs or expectations. The goal of interactive system is to create a seamless and efficient user experience that align with the user needs and objective. And digital transformation, as we have studied, like is the integration of digital technology in all areas of business, fundamentally changing how organization operate and deliver values to customers. Next, we studied user centered design, which is an approach that prioritizes the needs, preferences, and the behavior of the user to create intuitive and effective product or solutions. Choosing product idea from real world around us to ensure that solutions are relevant. So in our lecture we have tried to take many real world example around us, starting from credit card payment to cab booking to helping a visually impaired person from for running or crossing the road, or probably even the typing in this case using the project wave and so on. So I also want you to basically think aloud, think about the problems around you and choose a project statement and the problem around you, so that along with this course you can start working towards it and build on top of every lectures that we are doing and complete towards the end of this course. And towards the end, I mean, we'll be having a tutorial and two sample project, as I said. So tutorial will be covered on the topic of good design and bad design with our amazing teaching assistant Ritik Bamba, and sample projects will be presented by uh, our brilliant student Hardy and Sanjana, and we'll also be releasing assignment one towards this. And for further readings you can go through these links along with the books which are mentioned in earlier slides. With this, thank you.